Hi, how you doing, and welcome back to another video on the channel. What I've got for you today is the preview video going into Game Week 37, where I will be using my bench boost. And there's a bit of a twist with this video because I am actually away, so I'm having to record this before Game Week 36's matches have even kicked off. So who knows how my game week has gone. And the only difference really is that I won't have a review of how my week went, because at this stage I just don't know. But the rest of the video will be the same, and because I'm using my bench boost, I thought it would be useful to get a video out at least with my initial thoughts. Obviously there could be injuries that might impact that, but I do try and cover all the bases, and hopefully that will help you out if you're planning on bench boosting as well. So if it does, please do subscribe. Season's nearly over, so any late subscribers will be really appreciated, and it'll set you up well for keeping track with all the content we're going to be putting out next year. So we're going to get straight into the captaincy options here, and it is a super open game week because there are games on Tuesday with Palace and Man City. They'll have played the FA Cup final on Saturday, so the deadline will have happened before that game, and therefore there might be certain injury risks and rotations that come up as a result of the FA Cup final that we can't take account for in that game. So captaining someone like Marmoush is a little bit riskier this game week. We also don't know at this stage whether Haaland might start as well, and whilst that won't affect Marmoush's minutes directly, it could impact the rotation or an early sub, given how many midfielders and attackers Man City have to play at the moment, or have the options to play. So with that in mind, who do you captain? Well, I think if you're ever in doubt, you captain Salah, because he is just the best player in FPL history. So if you're not sure, you captain him because he gets an extra point for a goal, gets a point for a clean sheet if Liverpool get it. Now, there's also the risk run with Liverpool in the fact that they rotate, and maybe Salah, he still plays, but maybe the team's a little more disjointed and he's not quite getting the same opportunities that he's been getting all season. So where do you go from there? Well, it is also tricky because Leicester and Ipswich play each other. So you've not got a team to target necessarily. The team you would target, Southampton, they play Everton. But A, I don't really think Everton have many good captainable options, and they don't score a lot of goals. And B, you probably don't own them anyway, so they're not an option. So it depends on how risky you want to go, because this is the sort of game week where a random player will just be the highest goal scorer for the game week, or point scorer in FPL. So you could go for an Aston Villa player at home to Spurs. They'll have just had their Europa League semi-final. Maybe they're in the final and they're going to rotate. Or you could go for Palmer at home to Man United if you still own Palmer. I think he's a good option because Man United might be in the Europa League final and therefore they'd rotate. We know that's going to happen pretty certainly. Other than that, I think the Brentford-Fulham game would be quite high scoring. Maybe Mbumo, they're at home. So the Arsenal-Newcastle game even, I don't really like that. You could captain Isak if you think Arsenal are just, they've not been playing very well recently and Newcastle need to get in top four. So for me, I think Salah is sort of the safest option. Palmer, if you already own him, as the highest upside, maybe with a Watkins or even a Rodgers in there against Spurs, I think are all viable captaincy routes. But I would be avoiding Man City just for the uncertainty reasons of how they're going to go in the FA Cup, and then rotation and injuries based on that. So let's take a look at my team and how it sets up. We're going to start in goal, and because I'm free hitting in game week 38, I can just use my 2 free transfers on getting in anyone for a single game week with no long-term consequences. So with that in mind, if I did have a few extra transfers, Raya would be someone I'd be considering taking out. That Newcastle game at home is all right, but because Arsenal will have played in the Champions League and we don't know how that will have gone, and we don't know how they'll react, whether they've qualified or not, and I'm also got Isak in my team, so I'm kind of betting on it either way. So if I did have a transfer, I would be swapping out Raya, but with the 2 I'm using, one of them is probably going to be on the defence. Now, one of that might be on Murillo. He did go off injured at the end of game week 35, and I actually don't know how that's going to be at this time of recording. So if he's fit, I probably will just transfer out Kanate. If Murillo's injured, then I do need to use a transfer on him. Now, I would have kept Kanate, although the reason I'm thinking of transferring him out is because he got benched in game week 35. And one of the main things you need to have on a bench boost is all your players playing. So if he's a rotation risk, then he would be someone that I would be transferring out. However, if Murillo's injured, then he definitely needs to go. Now, in midfield, I'm quite happy with how it's set up. Jacob Murphy is someone who will be coming out this game week. That Arsenal game away just isn't necessarily the best one for him, and he's potentially gone off the boil as well. Although there is a chance I'm recording this and he's just scored a hat-trick in game week 36 against Chelsea. So in which case, maybe I should keep him. But as it stands right now, he's one of the players that I will definitely be transferring out. The rest of the midfield I am super happy with. And up front, I'd be starting all of them anyway. Now, this is going to be a genuine bench boost. I think sometimes people put, if they're going to be bench boosting, they put the better players on the bench. And they're like, oh, I've got 30 points on my bench boost. What a great decision to use it. Whereas in reality, a lot of people's bench boosts range from 8 to 15 points. And that's probably what I'm done here. I want to put a realistic bench out there. Now, if I wasn't bench boosting, I probably would have some selection headaches here. In terms of even the goalkeepers, which one to play, and then the defenders as well. But because I've got 3 defensive players on my bench, the likelihood is I probably will get about 8 to 10 points of my bench boost because the ceiling for defenders is so much smaller. Now, a lot of this success hinges on Wolves. If they can keep a clean sheet against Crystal Palace, then I'll be on automatically 12 points for a bench boost, and then everything else is a bonus. So if they don't, then it kind of nullifies the bench boost a little bit. So I've got to keep that in perspective, but I have to use it this week. It's not the worst one to use it on because I do think there is potential for benching headaches here and some of the bench players scoring well. So let's take a look at the 2 free transfers I've got and who I'm thinking of using it on to maximise this boost. So the first one would be, as we said, Kanate. If Murillo is fit, if Murillo's injured, then he'll be coming out. And I'm thinking of getting Cucurella in. Again, because I'm free hitting in 38, I do think that this 1 week risk, playing Man United at home, is definitely worth it. Now, Man United can still score, but Chelsea keeping a clean sheet is not out of the realms of possibility. And Cucurella has been playing 90 minutes pretty much every week recently, even with Chelsea rotating players. So he also has the potential for an attacking return as well, which might be wishful thinking, but not absolute crazy talk that he keeps a clean sheet and gets a goal. In midfield, as we said, Jacob Murphy is coming out, but I'm thinking of bringing in El Canouse from Leicester City. Now, hear me out, because I know this looks a little bit out there, but talk about differential picks. No one will be owning Leicester City or Ipswich players or wanting to transfer them in unless they're on a free hit in 37. So therefore, the points spread potential against other FPL managers is there. I also think Leicester versus Ipswich has the potential to be a really high scoring game. And El Canouse is kind of that player who can get some attacking returns. If I decided I wanted to play it safe, I could just go for a Rodgers or even a Tielemans at home to Spurs. But I just like this risk. And I think, like I said, no one else in FPL will probably be owning him. So as I'm going for a bench boost, I think I might as well just go all in and go for it, because the worst case scenario is he gets 2 points or 1 point, and well, I wouldn't have got any points off my bench anyway. No one else will be getting any points off their bench unless they're bench boosting. So it is worth the risk, and he's also cheaper than Murphy, so I know I can afford him. Whereas if I wanted to go for Rodgers or a Tielemans, that gets a little bit tighter if I have to take out Murillo instead of Kanate and I lose $500,000 of transfer budget in which to upgrade my midfielder. So the final transfer I would be thinking about would be Raya out for Pickford. Now, I did consider an Everton defender when I was talking about taking out Kanate, but Everton recently, since Tarkowski's injury, have been worse defensively. Like a couple of weeks ago, everyone was saying, oh, let's get Everton defenders in. They got Ipswich and Southampton both at home. Well, they've just conceded 2 goals to Ipswich at home. So I'm a little less sure of whether to bring in Pickford. And like I say, Raya would be a luxury transfer anyway. I think because the point ceiling for goalkeepers is so much smaller. You're realistically looking at, on a good week, 7-8 points from your keeper if they get 3 saves, and maybe they get a bonus point in there as well if they've kept a clean sheet. So if you imagine that a free transfer is worth 4 points, well, if I'm using those imaginary 4 points to do a keeper transfer, and Pickford, Raya gets 2 points anyway and Pickford gets 6 points, well, I've kind of only broken even. Whereas if I was to get in like a Kukurea or an attacker from midfield, those points potentials, there's still a lot bigger and there's a lot more there to be had. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. But let me know in the comments if you think I should go for anybody else on this 1 week. Let me know if you're bench boosting as well, what your plan is, and how many points you hope to get off your bench. Hopefully, you've had a good game week 36. Hopefully, I have as well, because right now I don't know. It could have been a nightmare. Hopefully, I've had a massive green arrow, but time will tell, I guess. So we'll have a little recap of that in the next video as well. So thank you very much for listening. Good luck in game week 37, and I will see you in the next one.